So this is my channel, so hopefully people who are coming in know who I am, but just in case you don't know who I am Gaius Augustus. I'm a multimedia communicator, and I make cool stuff like graphical abstracts and what else do I make? Animations and stuff like that to try and just share science with the world in a different way. I see I'm breaking my live stream, so I'm going to fix it. So Jen, do you want to introduce yourself?
All right. I am Jenn and by day, I am a postdoc, but my hobby is drawing. So I came across Gaius's live stream and I was like, maybe we should, like, a bunch of us science like-minded people who do art should hang out, and chat and keep each other company as we're doing our drawings. So that's how all this started. And yeah.
And if you are not already, you should totally go and follow Jen. Her Twitter handle is at the top. I'm changing things around again, which is just inevitable if I'm doing anything. But you can go follow her on Twitter as well so that you can see all the cool stuff she's doing.
Yeah. I tend to tweet a lot of stuff. Some science related, some not science related, but yeah.
Oh, that's totally fine. That's pretty much my life story. So you said you're a postdoc?
I am a postdoc.
So what is your research about, if you don't mind me asking? I haven't had this conversation with you.
No problem. So currently my field of research is in Alzheimer's disease, and to put it simply, the lab I work at looks at biomarkers to use to diagnose Alzheimer's disease earlier than the clinical symptoms. And I'm looking to find a way to diagnose AD in the eye. So the eye is a non-invasive way to look into the brain. So if we were able to detect neurodegeneration without having to, use PET or draw blood or look at CSF, then I think it would be a easier and probably a safer way to detect this disease. So yeah, that's pretty much what I'm doing.
So what's the current mode of detection? Is it just you have to go in for all these sort of imaging things, or do you actually have to get injected with something so you can see it, or what are we talking about?
So the classical way was developing cognitive functions decreasing, but that's already too late. Recently, people have been using MRI and PET. You get injected with a dye and then get scanned. But that's not as the resolution isn't as great as it could be. And people are now researching for better markers to use in imaging. In terms of in the blood, you can detect the aggregate proteins that are present in these diseases. And some say you can do it as early as maybe the early stages of Alzheimer's. But they don't know necessarily where those proteins are coming from, and some of these are just they're expressed endogenously. So
right,
that might be tricky in terms of diagnosis. You could also look at the CSF, but that requires you drawing cerebral spinal fluid from the spine, and that's usually pretty invasive.
Yeah.
So that's the current state of biomarkers right now. people are looking at different proteins as well, because it's not always just amyloid and tau. Well, we could like those are the two major ones. But there are some people, oh wow, I'm not even drawing. There are some people who can be who are like demented or diagnosed with dementia, but they don't have the classic tangles or plaques.
So they do have Alzheimer's, but they don't have the plaque. So they show like the signs of Alzheimer's, but not the plaque.
Yes. So it's not always like, oh, if you have dementia, therefore you must have plaques and tangles. Not necessarily the case.
But it's still, so why is it still considered Alzheimer's then?
Because of the clinical diagnosis.
Okay.
That's pretty much the how. I mean, I think now they do blood draws and CSF. PETs or imaging's really expensive, so
yeah.
If they could decrease the price of that, then yeah, it'd probably be widely used. But the idea with looking at the eye is that you don't have to necessarily go into a huge machine and pay all that money. You could just go to your optometrist.
Right.
And while they're looking at your eye, they can also look at your brain. But what am I doing? You know what? I think I'm going to work on something I've been.
Yeah, sounds good.
I've been like slacking off on.
That's kind of what I'm doing. So I'm working on a set of characters. I've been wanting to do this, like, I've been wanting to create a set of characters that I could use for, like, I don't know, just like any explanation of science, especially biology. And so I was like, well, what if I just created a set of characters, and then as I had topics, I could just kind of pull these characters in, and they're already made, and then they can like help explain the topics, and they're cute, and so people will want to watch the videos.
I like that idea. Would you have like one character focus on one subject and another character focus on another, or are they just like one character would be talking about biology and one would talk about physics?
So my idea was to have different characters from different like spheres, and then they would talk about that. So I decided to do land, water, air, as in like flying animals, and then microscopic and macroscopic, which would be like outer space, and that would be like an alien creature. So I could be more, kind of creative with that one. But the rest are all real animals. So that was kind of my idea.
That sounds awesome.
And so on another live stream, I actually made a bat, and I made a chameleon, and I made a jellyfish. So now I'm working on a water bear.
A tardigrade?
A tardigrade. Yep.
Oh, I love tardigrades.
They're so cute.
They are.
And then I'm going to make up some kind of alien for the outer space one. But I haven't decided anything about them yet. I made up an alien species when I was a kid that was like this weird, crazy thing. And my partner's like, you should totally use that one because it's so hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, maybe I will.
I'm totally for using things from your childhood.
It's just hard to animate because it was very creative. Problems. So what are you working on?
So I've been like online. They have these draw on your style challenges.
Yeah.
And I decided to take a bunch of people's characters and just mash them in together with a theme. So a lot of them were plant-based and or flower-based. So I pulled them all together into a scene, but I've been totally slacking on this because I just have other things to do. So
Yeah. Not like you have a job or
I
anything.
know, right? This is my hobby.
It's really cute though. What are these all characters from? Are these web comics or
Or they're just people's original characters that they came up with.
oh, that's really
So like if you go on the hashtags, people would just post their characters and say, hey, you want to draw this? And I looked around, saw some really cute ones, and decided to draw them. Pull them
that's adorable. Yeah, I didn't know. My partner and I have like a ton of original characters, and we've never shared the stories online or anything. So
together.
I never really thought people would be interested.
You know, you never know.
Right? I know. Well, I didn't think anybody would be interested in my science art either. So, and that's been proven pretty wrong.
Sometimes you just gotta put it out there,
Mhm.
and you'll attract the right people. That's what
Yeah,
I've been finding.
you have a really cute style. Or are you just drawing in someone else's style? Or
No, this is yeah, this is thank you. I've been drawing for quite some time. I think I've mentioned this, but when I was in grad school, I would draw a lot as a way to like decompress.
yeah,
It was it felt kind of weird, silly at the time, but it was my way to just relax and just detach from the lab, not always be in science mode 24/7. It gave me another way to be creative, but not pertaining to science. Does that make
yeah,
sense?
yeah, totally. No, when I was in undergrad, I actually struggled because I completely stopped drawing, and I was like, I got to focus on my grades and focus on my future.
Oh my
And then when I
gosh.
got to grad school, I was like, I am not doing that. I have to
Mm-hmm.
find time to do something creative. And it really does help.
Yeah. I had this conversation with a PI in grad school. She has a husband or her husband is a piano technician, and she was saying how I guess we were talking about how free and create um, free and creative art is, and
Hmm.
how stringent and technical science is. But I was like, but your husband has to, you know, what he does is very technical. He's a technician, so he has to like make sure that the he has to fine tune the piano, make sure that the sound is correct.
Right.
And I was also saying that science can also be creative.
Hmm.
But she was like, no, I don't think so.
I run into that all the time with scientists. And
Yeah.
and I always argue, like I've actually written like posts on this that the best scientists are the most creative because you have to imagine what something is like that you have no idea about,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to like figure out using what evidence you have to figure out what it all means.
Exactly.
So I actually think the scientists are really, really creative, but they don't, we're kind of like taught in some way that we're not supposed to be, I guess.
I guess we're not supposed, yeah, or we're not, yeah,
I
I
don't know. I
totally
don't get
agree
it.
with that.
I don't get it.
I don't either.
But then I meet lots of scientists who are very creative and do things in their spare time and
Mm-hmm.
just make all sorts of cool stuff.
Right.
Like obviously there's some kind of connection there.
Yeah. I think one of the first scientists I followed on social media was one that knitted. So she was a chemist. I forgot. Oh man, that was a while back. She should be on social media, but I totally forgot her handle. But she would show like what she's knitted. She actually made patterns. Like,
That's cool.
man,
Patterns is one of those things, like for sewing or knitting or crocheting, that I just like am so in awe of.
it's very technical.
Yeah, and you have to have this mind that allows you to take something that is 3D and turn it into something 2D,
Hmm.
and that's really difficult.
Totally agree. And then, especially with knitting, you have to make sure that the number of um, stitches corresponds to a certain length.
Hmm.
Like, I know you have, well, of course, you want to have the garment that you're making fit. So, a
Yes,
lot of calculations that go into it. And that takes a lot of skill.
totally. Yeah, I'm totally in awe of those people who can do that.
Yeah, I know.
Like, I'm sure I could learn it, but I don't know. That's not. I don't think that's one of my strong points.
No, I don't know if I could either. Okay, I'm there.
Yeah, so I follow. I know I follow the Purple Lilac and Anna Maria Porres, who do crocheting,
Hmm.
and then Leah Pass does embroidery.
Yes.
I know that they're Beata Science Art, I think, is one of the people I know who does like designing fabrics and making outfits, and
Mm.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I know she had like a what's it called, a like fashion show last year, I think, and the stuff was just amazing.
That sounds familiar. Speaking of stitching, I don't know the person's real name, but I know their handle, the Stitching Hue.
Yes, yeah, I
Oh,
follow
is that?
on Instagram.
Yes.
That's always the hard one for me, is that I'll follow someone on like Instagram or Twitter, and
Hmm.
then I don't know that I'm also following them on the other one, and so and they have a different handle or something,
Yeah.
and then they'll say something, and I'm just like, oh, I didn't know. Hi.
Hard to keep those things straight.
I know. I mean, it helps when people have like their name on stuff, but
Yeah, yours is easy.
yeah, I try to make it that way. And my name's pretty recognizable, so
Yes.
it helps.
I think when I made my handle, I just wanted something simple, but and I didn't want to give out my name because I was like, oh, I'm
Yeah,
so scared too.
yeah, definitely. I think it's totally reasonable to like kind of hide your presence for a little while.
Yeah.
When I started, so my Twitter handle is really old, so that's why it's not like the same as all of my others. But when I was creating all my stuff, I really wanted to make something that would be recognizable.
Yeah.
I was thinking about branding already at that point, like, so, makes some sense.
That's that's smart. Have you met anyone uh, from from Twitter in real life?
Um, so there are definitely people that I met in real life through like a conference, and now I mostly talk to them on Twitter. But so
Uh,
far, I don't think I've met anyone. I know that there's a couple people that were part of science, right? That are part of science writers that I asked for some like advice on what I should be doing.
Mm.
start doing more science communication, and they suggested that I go to Science Writers, and so I did. And when I went, I put up a post. I was like, look, I'm going to be going to Science Writers this year. If you see me, this is what I look like. If you see me, just come say hi to me.
Hmm.
And a few people did. So that was really cool.
Okay.
But if those aren't really the people I interact with a lot.
Mm.
So I am looking forward to going to some other. If you see me, this is what I look like. If you see me, just come say hi. Did you turn me on?
Yeah, I accidentally.
Yeah, I do that sometimes accidentally. And I'm like, where am I coming from? But yeah, so I'm hoping to get to some more science communication conferences soon, um, this year, and hopefully meet some more people, because there's so many cool people on Twitter that I would love to meet. And it's just a matter of kind of getting there and finding the funding and time, I guess.
Yes.
How about you? Have you met anyone?
No, because I've been purposely hiding away from.
No, details.
Yeah. I'm still a little skittish about, you know, approaching people. It's kind of weird. Like, I own my own social media. Hey.
Yeah, I definitely like started there, and I think it's just like, I don't know. I have really bad anxiety and like I've just struggled a lot. But I also worked retail for a really long time,
Mm.
and so in some ways I feel like in a horrible way that helped me. I don't know.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, that forced you to interact with people.
Exactly, and not like necessarily in a good way, but at least it did. You know?
You develop some coping mechanisms to deal with it, right? Or
Yeah.
ways to deal with it.
Yeah, maybe that's a better way of putting it.
Mm.
But yeah, people, it's funny. Whenever I would give talks, people would be like, "Oh, you're so extroverted and you do so well," and I'm like, "That's a complete act. I am terrified." But it's also important, like we have to. If I'm going to do science communication, if I'm going to put myself out there into the world, then I'm going to have to get used to at some point sharing myself.
Yes.
So.
Self out. Yep.
Yeah. So I try to tell myself that people who seem very confident are having some of the same issues I'm having, and I think that helps me to be a little bit less scared. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's because I mean we're not. You're right. You're probably not the only one who has like anxiety about this kind of stuff. So it's just that some people are better at hiding it,
Yes.
and
Definitely.
it just takes time to get over that. I need to get over that. I'm also trying to put myself out there slowly,
Right.
surely.
Makes sense.
Can't always be in the lab.
As much as we would like to be,
Yeah, right.
as much as our advisors would like us to be, our PIs.
Oh, yeah. You know, data doesn't just come out, just doesn't sprout out of nowhere.
I know, unfortunately. So I have a question for you is about Procreate. So Procreate's it's only available on iPad, right?
I believe so. I don't think there's a desktop version. I might be wrong, but
So, so how did have you always drawn in Procreate, or did you,
no.
what other programs have you tried?
I've tried Sketchbook,
Yeah.
and I think, what else have I tried? I think those are the only two programs I've used.
Do you like Procreate better than Sketchbook?
I do. It feels a little more intuitive.
Right.
I like the selection of pens or brushes that they provide, and you could, like with any other program, you could upload brushes and you can make your own brushes.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, but I just tend to, for now, I use the standard brushes, and I've been experimenting with them, seeing what kind of um, how they work, if I if it works with my whole process.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I've been playing with a bunch of different styles, and I've been struggling because I've been working on this character project for a while, and I kind of like tried different styles, and I have to keep remembering, like, oh no, this was a you have to stick with the same style because these are all going to be characters used,
Yeah.
and that's been a little bit difficult. But yeah, I've been so I started back using Illustrator last year. I first started using it in high school, which was like over 15 years ago. So it's just been a long time, and so the program has evolved a lot,
Yes.
and so things are nowhere near where they used to be, and there's so many more things you can do with it. But I just got it and was like, okay, I'm just going to use it the way that I remember,
Mm-hmm.
and then while I'll like learn other stuff as I go. And I've just been learning so many amazing, really innovative techniques,
Oh, nice.
and I'm trying to kind of find my style within those.
It takes a while to find your style, but I think it takes a lot of experimenting as well.
Definitely. Yeah, I've been drawing for so long, and I've always like felt like I didn't have a style.
Same here. But then, as we draw, and then we tend to find things that work for us or things that we like, and I guess that becomes your style.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of thinking about it.
Yeah, I just when I was like seriously into drawing, I would um I would experiment, but now I draw whenever I have time,
Right.
and I just do whatever is working for me at the moment. Okay, so
But that's probably a really good way to develop a style, actually, when you stop thinking about it
mhm.
and you just start drawing and improving.
I think also I probably should shouldn't just draw for the sake of drawing. If I do want to, you know, improve, I probably should be focusing a little bit more on, okay, what do I feel like I need to work on? Like,
Yeah,
okay, do I have to
probably.
work on hands or
So, do you want to go into academia after you're done, or do you have other plans?
mm, I I do want to go into industry.
Okay.
I also been wanting to go more into the science communication part.
Oh,
I
yeah?
one of my one of my dreams would be to find a way to meld my drawing hobby with, my scientific job. But it's like I really haven't found a way to do that.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel like people that do that really like just kind of happen by it, you
Yeah.
know? I So I don't know if there's a scientist named Neil Shubin.
Mm-hmm.
He's done quite a bit of science communication. He's done a couple like PBS specials and stuff.
Oh, nice.
My undergraduate advisor was one of his students, and I remember asking him, like, well, how does he do both? How do you be a scientist and work and try and get all this stuff done and like make a TV show? Like that's hard.
Right.
And he said, oh, well, he has people in the lab doing lab work, and he goes out and does the communication side of things. And when he is in the lab, he's just guiding. I was like, yeah, but how do you get to that? Like, how you can just tell your university, like, oh, well, I'm going to hire someone else and they'll write the funding and teach the classes. And, like that's something you do later on in your career. So how do you get started with that?
Yeah.
And I
And
think that's
how
difficult.
would you get hired?
Yeah,
Right.
I guess you'd lie.
Like,
Mm,
because you would have several responsibilities as well, but you're like, if you tell them that you're interested in science communication and the department's not really into that, then
well, I would think it'd
like,
be harder in industry,
that is true.
but
Because
at least you can do it in your spare time in industry because you have spare time.
yeah, originally I thought that, oh, I can, because I thought science would, or a science job would be 9 to 5. I don't know why
Uh,
I thought that.
I didn't know any better either.
I could be able to do my regular job and then come home and do art thing on the side.
Hmm.
But that's not really the case.
Yeah, and that's sad actually that it is that it's that way.
I think maybe it's changing with, I hear things about, expectations, and now that, not everyone's going to be a PI, so
Hmm.
more programs are being lenient on, or more open to jobs outside of academia.
Yeah,
I don't want to say alternative career because
I know. I've definitely gotten comments on. I wrote a set of articles. I don't know, year and a half ago,
Mhm.
called like academic careers in science, and I reposted them recently and got, you shouldn't use that language. I'm like, you're totally right. These are really old, and I definitely should go back and fix them. I just haven't had a chance yet.
Yeah, so it's changing, hopefully.
I wish it would change with the old people who are still, for some reason, in their jobs. Because I feel like that's the problem is people stay in academia so long where they don't change with the times.
Mm-hmm.
They're not really keeping up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, some people are, but not everyone. And so then, we kind of have to go at the pace of the slowest people, it feels like.
Because there's no incentive for them to keep up with the times.
Yeah, that's true.
Because it's just, oh, get your funding, write your papers, you got your job.
Yeah. Well, I know that funding agencies have tried to make an effort to like improve outreach,
Mm.
but the way that they do that is just kind of convoluted. I know some grants like they require you to do some outreach a certain amount per year or something and
Yes.
tell about your plan, but then PIs just kind of say, oh, well, I mentor my students that I already have in the lab, but they like phrase it in such a way that works for
Yeah.
it's like, well, that's not really what they meant. And of course, there's the idea that like PIs are already doing so much. Is it fair to have them doing outreach and not getting any extra benefit
Yeah,
from spending that extra time?
that is true. And also, these PIs aren't trained for this.
Totally. That's a good point.
So all they know is get money and do research.
Hmm.
Totally foreign for them. But it's changing.
Yeah, slowly but surely.
Yeah. There is that quote, I think I'm going to paraphrase it, but things don't, or um, things in science don't change because minds change. It's more that um, the old move on and the younger people who've been exposed to the new ideas take over.
Hmm.
So
Makes sense.
it's sad but true. It's like I wish that the people in power would be more readily to accept you know, these things.
Yeah, it's actually funny whenever I hear that kind of thing, I about like young people or early career people, I always say like, well, they're gonna take over anyway someday,
Mm-hmm.
so why not listen to what they have to say? Because they're less likely to like fight back if you actually listen.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't listen, then things are just gonna get worse for everyone.
Yeah, but no.
You know. But whatever. I mean, again, as they leave academia and new people come in, things will definitely change. And it's so nice. Actually, it was so nice to get on Twitter when I first got back on Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and see scientists saying, like, I have a life. I have a family that I see and that I take care of, and that I balance with my work life. And I was like,
What?
wow, right? Like, I've never heard. What are you talking about? Who lets you do that?
Really? It's amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was that was also my experience. Like, really?
And
Meanwhile, I was like surrounded with people who, do overwork and
yeah, that's really the hard part is that they say that, but then in your real life, you're constantly coming across people who are just pushing the narrative in the other direction. I remember my the chair of my department making jokes that like you should always be in the lab and it's like that's not funny, that's unhealthy. But he just like was like, well, when I was a grad student, I'm like, yeah, I do know, but that doesn't make it right.
right. Mm, I
We
have similar stories with my advisors, similar attitudes and stuff like that.
yeah,
And it's become normalized, but well, for them, it's normal.
exactly.
But now people are talking about this. There's more attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
I think, now that I think about it, I think, at least for my advisor, he's become, or my advisors, they've become more and more receptive to these kind of ideas the more and more they heard it on mainstream media.
Yes, that's a great point.
Because, and the way that mainstream media would report on this.
Mm-hmm.
Because, when they were in the lab, this was accepted as normal. So they've internalized that,
Right.
I think. And then because they know what they they've been trained that way. They supervise the way they've been trained.
Exactly.
Yeah, when I was like, after like realizing how stressful and toxic that environment was, I was a little angry at, my advisors. I'll admit it. But after I thought about it, I was like, this is the way that they've trained.
Mm-hmm.
They've been trained, and they're only replicating what they know.
Yeah. I often found myself arguing how much to argue with my PI about things,
Mm,
and when to just kind of let it go,
mm,
which I think sometimes you shouldn't, like sometimes they need to hear you, but other times it's just better to kind of let things chill and let change come as it comes, I guess.
mm. Yeah.
But so when I first joined my program, I they actually the person who was kind of head of the program at the time seemed to be a lot more understanding of the changes that were happening,
Mm-hmm.
but still had some interesting ideas. So he would say things like that there's no excuse for not making all A's in grad school. And I said,
What?
well, that depends on your program and classes. And, and so you knew that even though he was like, oh, yeah, well, we're trying to be more understanding of people wanting to go into other careers, but
Mm-hmm.
then he would turn around and say stuff like that. And it's like,
Um,
but what do your grades have to do with anything?
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. It's just so hard to get over what's been ingrained in them, I guess.
Yeah, well, and you have memories of what grad school is like for you.
Right.
And if grad school is not like that for students, so like I know I took a couple classes that were very difficult and were graded very harshly, and then I took other classes where they were like, well, whatever, you'll get an A. We're gonna make it hard, but at the end of the day, you don't have to worry about your grade. It's about learning, not about your grade.
Yeah.
So, I had access to both of those types of courses, and one of them was definitely more preferred than the other.
Right.
But yeah, some of my classes I really had to worry about like crap, like how am I gonna do well in this class?
I guess it was like just the expectation, or like, I don't know. Like,
I think it's just extrapolating your experience and the experiences of your students
oh, I see.
onto all students.
Yeah. And expecting if they don't perform to your expectation, then they're not fit for,
Right.
which, like the grades aren't really an indication of it. I mean, depending on the class, the grade doesn't really reflect like how well you're going to do in the lab, or
Yeah. Or in general, just how good a scientist you are or
yeah.
what a creative thinker you are. So what are you thinking as far as how often you might want to do this?
Um, I would at least twice a month. Would that
Yeah?
be okay?
Yeah, I think we could try that and see how it goes.
Yeah.
I messaged a few people and asked them what they thought of the idea, and all of them were very like excited.
Okay.
Um, I saw at least one of them stop in for a bit, and so I think it would be fun to have other people join us. Maybe.
I
What
agree.
do you think? Yeah.
Hopefully we didn't scare them off.
Well, I know several people told me they wouldn't be able to tune in live, but they were going to take a look later. And I was like, give me input. Tell me what was bad and what was good, and like what would make it worthwhile for people to come and watch. Because I don't know if you follow the I am SciArt account.
I do.
You do. So I'm running that this week,
Oh, hey.
and I talked a little bit about collaboration and building community in the SciArt community because I feel like the SciComm community has built a really strong community of people who want to help each other out.
Mm-hmm.
And the SciArt community has an amazing community of artists, but there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of back and forth between people who draw different styles and different types of things.
And this would be a great way to,
Yeah, I think
yeah.
just connecting to different types of artists and just getting to talk about cool things. Actually, one person actually even mentioned they do crochet, and I was like, well, you just put on your webcam and point it toward your hands, and we could do it that way. And they're like, yeah, I'd love to talk about how to crochet too. And I was like, well, that would be really cool because I would love to know more about that. And I'm sure that we could talk for an hour about that.
Mm.
So I think that would be cool. So how does this time and day work for you?
This works good for me. I
So
um I don't have anything going on, and usually around this time I'm pretty much settled. Um, how about you? How does this work for you?
yeah, this works well, and I assume that as I get into a job where I'm working 9 to 5, that Saturday evenings will be good.
Mm.
So I'm actually hoping once everything's confirmed for this job that I just got an offer for, I'm hoping that I'll be able to go on a vacation. So we haven't gone on vacation since I think my first year of grad school,
Oh my gosh.
and so I'm we're thinking about just like taking out a small loan and using it to go like the Universal Studios or something.
Oh, hey.
So I don't know. I think it'll be fun. I will figure it out. But so depending on when that is, we may have to decide on it one day or another. But in general, maybe we could just plan for the first doing this again
Mm-hmm.
and of June, and then we can see what happens from there.
Let me just confirm with that. Yeah.
And then I can just and we can just plan for every 2 weeks for now and see if anyone's interested in joining us on. I'll just like make a little calendar of dates, and after you say you're available, we can just kind of maybe ask people if they want to sign up for a day.
Mm-hmm.
Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah. And then we could probably come up with some themes as well.
Yeah, and I'd love to have people tell us themes. So actually, Olivia, I might be in here. I'm not sure if they can see the chat or anything, but that's one of the people that I just really really love her art. Live Without Limit, and I would love to just let people kind of tell us what they'd like to talk about, like any kind of topic. Because again, you and I talked about the fact that we could talk about science art or the science climate or something completely random
Mm-hmm.
that's just kind of about getting people together in one room, quote unquote, and getting us kind of working together and building that community.
I agree.
Cool.
So yeah, the first will work best for me.
Okay, great. So,
Oh, so cute. I'm looking at your tardigrade.
okay, I was like, what's going on? No. So, yeah, so I'm just getting the base color down. And I don't know, I might continue working on this next time. We'll see if I have a chance to work on it between now and then. But I'm
Mm.
so happy to be able to work on this because I haven't gotten to work on it in so long. So let's see yours.
Oh, okay. So that's mine. Let's see. Is it actually?
There's a little bit of a delay
Yeah.
between us, and it's like a pretty long delay too. It's like 10, 15 seconds.
I
But
wonder if it's because I'm using my iPad instead of my desktop.
no, the delay is actually from our
Example.
computers to Periscope.
I see.
Oh, it's so cute.
Oh, thanks.
I love it so much.
I need to. I've been. I've been also trying to come up with characters of my own that for something science created, related.
That would be cool. I've been talking to people about, um, yeah, I actually talked about wanting to do some animation. Um, and I've actually been wanting to talk to some people about drawing art for me, and then I animate it because I love animating and I like drawing, but in a lot of ways, I just love animating. So, so if you ever want to do that, let me know
I will.
because I want to do more science animations, but just drawing everything takes a lot.
Yes.
So, all
So,
right, I think we should call it a night.
okay.
Well, how was the time frame for you? So it's 8:01, so we did this for almost an hour,
Mm-hmm.
just because we got started a little late. How the time work out for you?
That worked out fine for me.
You feel like you got enough done in an hour?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I feel like I got pretty far,
Yeah.
farther than I thought I'd get.
These details are. I'm pretty much almost done. I just have to work on the background.
Yay! The most fun part.
Yay!
All right,
Nice.
cool. Yeah, I know. So let's plan on June 1st, at 7 p.m. PST,
Yep.
and doing this for an hour again. And I'll just message people and see if who gets dibs on working with us. Oh, did you see the logo, by the way?
Yes, I did. Awesome.
What do you think?
Yay! I like it.
All right, cool. Because I just kind of threw it together and was like, well, we'll see, but we'll use it for now until we get sick of it, and then we'll change
Mm-hmm.
it. Sounds good. All right, I'm going to let you go, and I will message you later about next time. Sound good?
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
No worries.